I'm your host, Gideon Akande, and welcome to iFit's Virtual Solidarity March for Black Equality. I am so happy to have you here. We have participants from all over the world, including you. Today, we'll be having discussions with iFit athletes, Olympians, pro athletes, influencers, and of course, yourself. So right now, I ask that you scan that QR code on your screen to ask any questions you have as you listen in on what will be an amazing conversation and a great learning experience. Today, we commemorate Juneteenth, the official end to slavery as we, a country, move towards something better and something positive. Now check it out, you guys are gonna love this, because iFit is donating to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund in honor of every participant today. So just by being here watching, you are giving towards something better that will elevate us as a human race. All right, enough of me talking. Let's get to our first guests. We have our friends in Logan, Utah, Johnny Gale and Ashley Paulson. Johnny, how you doing?
Hey, man. Hey, brother. We're doing fantastic up here in beautiful Logan, Utah right now. I've got the all-star Ashley Paulson over here on my left.
Hey, guys.
Most importantly, we are tremendously excited to be with so many amazing trainers and, most importantly, you users at home. So thank you guys for joining us, and thanks for allowing us to be part of this, Gideon. This was a great idea, my friend.
Thanks for rocking, Johnny. Ashley, how you feeling over there today?
Oh, I am so excited to be a part of this with you guys today. Thank you so much for bringing me here. I'm excited to learn and grow and just be a part of this with all of my team and everyone at home.
Well, one thing's for certain, we're all in this together, and I really appreciate you both because you're both iFit trainers. You are into fitness, you're into encouraging and motivating people, but sometimes we need motivation, we need encouragement, and we need to learn from each other. So, Johnny, I want to ask you first, because yes, you're a fitness professional, but you're also a loan officer. So, as a black person and as a loan officer, have you noticed any things that maybe most people are not aware of in regards to what you do as an officer and how that translates into the experience of black people?
Hey, man. Yeah, I guess you know me well, dude. That's definitely a question that's right up my alley. You know, I am a loan officer as well as a fitness trainer, and I guess if we're going to be talking about mortgages, there's a really discriminative practice that took place really in its heyday it's really taken place ever since there was a housing market in the United States, but especially back in like the 1960s, called redlining, which, it's essentially a systematic denial of various services by federal, local governments and private, corporations to essentially separate people. It could be based on race, it could be based on income, but what you find is they'll segregate one area. They did, a lot of banks would essentially not loan to minorities to buy in an area that is predominantly white. And so they can do that, whether it's directly or indirectly, by raising prices or just by flat out not giving loans to people. So you could have an individual, a white individual with a low income who gets a loan versus a minority individual with a medium income, and they're denied that same loan in that area. And so redlining is a practice that has been tremendously discriminatory, and I have to say, from a hopeful perspective, that a lot of measures have been put in place to keep loan officers like myself from discriminating, against people for anything, whether that be age, race, or income level. For me, when somebody comes and sits across the table from me, I'm going to give them a fair shot no matter who they are. But that doesn't mean that that discriminatory practice doesn't still exist. And I think that just like the fact that we have this opportunity to speak about race with one another, there's a virus in this country, and it's not COVID. But in this case, we defend ourselves against COVID with a mask, but I think the way we defend ourselves against this systematic racial injustice that's taken place in this country ever since it was a country is by doing what we're doing right now. Just being able to sit down and talk about it, in an open forum where there's no judgment. And, you know, especially for all of our users at home, we want you to have the ability to just, you know, toss questions out there, and you're going to get a non-judgmental answer back from all of us. So, you know, I think there's a lot of hope for the future. Redlining is something that is being pushed out, but, you know, I think once again, you know, the fact that we're having these conversations, that's our mask against this virus that is racial prejudice.
Indeed. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Johnny. And it's very interesting to hear that insight, and especially from somebody who's in that industry. There's so many systemic issues, and sometimes prejudice isn't overt. Sometimes bigotry isn't in your face. Sometimes it's behind closed doors. It's written in word on contracts, and as a result, it manifests itself in ways that are discriminatory. So thank you for sharing that insight, man. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Ashley, got to check in with you. Now, as a mama of beautiful babies, I want to know, like, as you are watching all of these things unfold, you not being a black person, but now starting to see even more and more the plight of the black person in America, what have you been taken away? Have you learned anything? Have you been shocked by anything? What does it mean to you as you digest it all?
Oh my gosh, yes, I have learned so much in the last, month, Gideon, about how blind I've been. I've got 4 kids at home, and how much I've been teaching them about racism. Just because I teach them to love everybody, I have not been doing enough on my end. And that's a question I wanted to come ask you. What's the best way to teach our kids about racism?
Yeah, that's a very, very great question. First off, I'm not a parent, so I don't think I'm qualified to tell anybody about raising kids. However, I will say this. Yeah, it's very important to understand these things, and it's very important to talk about these things. I think what happens a lot of the time is that when you are at home and you're sitting at the dinner table, if it doesn't affect you in your face and indirect, well, most people just kind of brush it under the table. But right now, we need to start looking at what's happening on television. We need to start looking at what's happening in our streets and having those discussions. So our children know that some of these behaviors are not warranted. Some of these issues shouldn't be happening. And as a result, this is an uprising of people being oppressed for so long and educating ourselves on why this has been happening so that the future doesn't repeat itself. Nobody wants to see businesses burn down. Nobody wants to see unrest. Nobody wants to be marching in the streets for causes that we feel we should have. So let's all come together and find ways to elevate each other. And I feel if we share that message, but also give the true history behind why things are, people will come to an understanding and at the end of the day see that our color is just that, a color, and it doesn't change the value of the person inside.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. It's something that I have been really passionate about the last month, to teach my kids and to educate them a little bit more. Little example on my end. This morning, the morning of Juneteenth, I text my twins that are 18 years old, and I said, hey, do you know what Juneteenth is? And I put it in a string text. We're all together, and they had no idea. That right there shows that I have not done my part on educating. The schools have not done their part on educating. Why is this not a holiday celebrated that all men are free at that point? In fact, I just got chills thinking about it. It saddens my heart that I had not taught them about more on that end. But now I'm aware, and I am going to do my part to teach my kids, not only educate myself, but educate the next generation. So thank you so much for sharing and being so open to us, like throughout your social media the last month. I've been watching you and following along and learning and doing what you have asked me to do a month ago, educating myself. So thank you.
No, the pleasure is mine, and thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people miss the point. When there's protest, the main purpose of protest is to bring awareness, because there's a feeling that a lot of people don't know. So protests and uprisings aren't necessarily to point the finger at anybody, but it's to say, like, hey, maybe you didn't learn this, maybe you never experienced this, maybe you didn't know this. this is what my situation is, and I want to make you aware so that you can see what the injustices are. So yeah, I understand how you may have felt like in some ways you weren't adequate or equipped to educate your children, but chances are you didn't learn it in school. Our schools don't teach certain parts of history, right? So there's a lot of information that we have to gather on our own. And during this gathering process, during this communication process, having a chance to converse and hear each other, now we can start to learn and now we can start to grow. So I'm glad that you're taking those liberties and sharing that with your family, the same way that Johnny just kind of shared some of the bad practices. Absolutely. All right, we have a question. I want Johnny, Ashley, stay right there. I want you to help me with this question. We have a question from someone who scanned the QR code. All right, the question is for me specifically, but I also want to ask you guys as well, too. The question was, since I live in Chicago, have I participated in any of the rallies across the city or any of the protests? Let me ask you, Ashley, and you, Johnny, have you guys participated or been in any? I know you're not too far from Salt Lake City, where I know they had some protests going on.
Yeah, so, you know, I live in Ogden, but I also have a house in Salt Lake City, and I don't know if you guys were watching, you know, the news. I mean, for all of you that aren't from here, you probably wouldn't see our local news, but things got a little heated downtown. I wasn't at this particular rally. This was right after the killing of George Floyd. But, you know, cars were getting tipped over and set on fire. The Capitol got, you know, tagged up. And, you know, those were the violent protests. But what I saw after that, I think was awesome to that, you know, people, you know, those are just a couple bad eggs, man. You know, that's, I think, people that are taking an opportunity to go out and cause problems. But the people that, you know, these rallies have gone on for weeks now in Utah, and I've participated in several. It's really a lot of people getting together as a collective and just trying to do what we're doing right now, which is educating each other. And, I mean, obviously, this killing of Mr. Floyd is a tragedy, but I noticed there was a couple police video, a video that came out of a police officer doing the exact same move and putting his knee down on a guy's neck. And I thought one of the coolest things was to see the officer that was with him, see that he was using excessive force and help him change his behavior. He reached out, told him to take his knee off of the guy's neck. And I mean, if there's anything that came out of this, I think that, I mean, you're seeing that portrayed, that you know, behaviors are changing. And you know, we're not where we need to be yet, but and by no means do I think that violent protests are a good idea. But you know, once again, you hit on this topic a moment ago, that once you know, oppression takes place for so long, you know, you're yelling at somebody over and over, I'm oppressed, and they don't hear you. You yell, I'm oppressed, and they don't hear you. Eventually, there's going to be a collision, right? And sometimes emotion doesn't have logic, you know, involved. So I think that the fact that we can just have a conversation like this and, you know, bring awareness to the fact that there are injustices, you know, in our country, and you know, we can be the America that it was always supposed to be, you know, the America that we have yet to become, you know.
Yeah. So, no, thank you for sharing that insight. I appreciate that. Ashley, what about you?
You know, I have not taken part of any of those in a way like of any violence or holding signs or anything, but it has opened my eyes more because my kids have come with questions, and that's always an eye-opener for me when they come to me and ask me about, why is this happening? Why are the, you know, haven't people been shot in the streets before, so why now? And so being a part of it in a different way, I've been educating, like I've gone back to, is the education part, educating myself so that I can educate those around me that aren't aware, or my kids. So I've taken a part in it in a different stance.
Yeah, in all reality, though, I think that's maybe even, you know, a much more important, you know, role that you're playing to be able to build a new generation that maybe we can start to blur some of these lines, you know. So I think
cool, right?
you know, I'm out marching on rallies. You're at home cooking macaroni and cheese and telling your kids about Juneteenth, man. Hey, we all got to participate our own way, but
that's what we do, as long as we're in this together.
And to answer that question from my perspective. So I have not gone out in protest, and there's a reason why. And I feel like there is adequate space for everyone to be a part of the movement without necessarily having to protest. And let's think about it. There are going to be people on the front lines protesting. That's their job. There's going to be people who are helping to bail people out and offer pro bono legal defense. That's their job. There's going to be people that are educating and teaching ways in which we can change our status quo. That's their job. There's going to be people who are on social media, like myself, and using that platform to have conversation and continue to elevate the collective and educate and elevate awareness. And that's what I decided to do. So not only was I doing that on my social media, reaching out to my followers, having discussions in the open for people to listen, learn, and grow from, but I was also working with great companies like iFit to offer opportunities to educate and spread the word to the masses so we can all continue to learn and grow together. But one thing is for certain, and I'm glad that you're doing this, Ashley, I'm glad that you're doing this, Johnny, is we have to take action. Once we learn, once we know, once we grow, we have to make sure that our feet are moving, just like they are now with this march, but we have to take action and take action swiftly. I think we may have another question.
That's right.
Yeah. Peel.
Oh, man, that is our man, John. For those who may not be familiar, John Peel is another iFit trainer. He just had he just had his first beautiful baby girl, Skylar. So congratulations to your beautiful family,
Yeah,
John.
John.
Yeah, Johnny.
We know you can't be here
man.
personally, but we know you're here in spirit. And this is the thing. All of our iFit community, and even those of you who are not familiar with iFit, the fact that you're here means you're part of a larger collective. So yeah, we're marching.
Right.
We're marching in solidarity. We're interlocking our hands, and we're going one leg at a time towards something better, towards something greater. And of course, we're doing this together. All right. Yo, Johnny, thank you so much. Ashley, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. See you both very, very soon.
Thank you so much, Gideon.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together, Gideon. Great idea.
That's right.
And, thanks for letting us be a part of it, you guys.
That's right.
Stay
Much
strong.
Together,
love,
dude.
much love.
Stay safe.
We're together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take this down south to Florida, where we have the Pump Fit Club in the house. I'm talking about Hannah Eden and Paolo Barreto. Hannah, how you doing?
Hello. I'm so good. Thank you so much for asking. How are you doing, Giddy?
I am doing very well. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that everybody is tuning in, watching as we raise these funds for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Hannah, is your hair still red?
Kind of. Half red, half dark. We're going into quarantine style now, you know?
I hear you on that. Paolo, how you doing, my brother?
Gideon, what's going on? Thank you so much for having me. Hello to all of our fellow trainers, to all of our peers, and hello to you at home. Thank you so much for hosting us, Gideon. Such classy guy and such great debate. Happy to be here, my friend.
Hey, much love to have you, man. So glad to have you. So I have to ask you a question. I'm going to start with you, Hannah. So with your studio, you are all about community, and you guys do an amazing job with that. And you always have so many different initiatives, so many different goals, so many different projects and just different challenges to take a part in. How are you able to stay true to what you're doing with what your offering is while still supporting ending racism and supporting the Black community? How are you able to intermix those two while still staying true to yourself and not having it feel forced?
That's actually a great question, and I'm going to be, as always, pretty transparent with this. So, personally, as Hannah Barreto, my full real name, I feel so strongly about racism. I personally, it just makes me sick to my stomach. I think being a minority myself, I can maybe relate in the smallest way possible to what most Black people have to deal with every single day of their life. And because of that, I knew that I also, if you guys know me, I have a mouth. I'm loud, I'm always going to speak for what I believe in. I'm always going to stay true to myself, and I'm always going to do what I feel like is morally right. And there's been a lot of things that are going on recently where using the social platform to give opinion is a very confusing and unsafe space, because there's so many people that have an opinion. There is so much backlash that you can receive. And I'm only saying this out loud because I hope that other business owners or other people that have a brand, that have an ability to reach a certain amount of people, can understand that the thoughts that they're probably having are the same ones that we had too. But it came down to the part where it would be morally wrong to not stand up and speak about how I felt. But at first, it was very emotional. You know, I couldn't help myself. I went out there and I said what I have to say. That's 500,000 people that we're talking to in one click of a button. With that being said, as a business owner, I also understand that social media is the driving force behind our business. So we have to be careful, right? This is what we're typically told. But for this piece of time, I disagree. I think that we are doing a huge fault to ourselves and to our own brands if they are really true and hold integrity, because this is a matter of right and wrong. So once I had emotionally blurted out how I felt, we had an internal discussion as a team and said, okay, it would be disrespectful and wrong to just try and move forward and keep going like nothing's going on and not mentioning or aligning ourselves with a huge need for us all to come together and make some noise. So we figured, how can we align this to what our business is, and how can we do something to make a difference, and also to align our personal feelings with our brand, which is what we've done since day one. We've never had to face such a controversial matter, I guess, publicly, till now. So we know that we needed to make wise decisions, have a thought-out plan, and not just act irrationally. So we decided to get together, take some time to stay quiet, like Ashley was saying, and educate ourselves, because immediately, I think that all of us need to be a little bit more open to learning and a little less kind of like checking our egos to the side, because we don't know it all.
Yes.
And unless we really educate ourselves or inform ourselves, I don't feel like any of us have the right to have an opinion until we do that. But what I do feel like as a social media influencer, that I have an absolute responsibility to use my platform to do something with, other than getting likes and comments, being recognized in the fitness space. That's not why I started this journey. This journey was about community. This journey was about opening up a facility where we hope and dream that what we feel as human beings, we're able to just spread or shine or rub off into the people that walk into our doors or that come in contact with us. And we hope that together as a community, we're surrounded by a like-minded people, right? That's what community is. There's usually one common theme or one common goal that is bringing people together, which usually is full of like-minded people. So we wanted to make sure that whatever message we spread was powerful, whatever message we did would align with what we're doing, so it wouldn't come out of the middle of nowhere and people wouldn't almost support it. So we decided, how can we align movement to be our voice? Movement has allowed us to get our social media following to where it is. Our movement has drawn so much attention to what we do, so why would we not utilize it to try and help this cause that we strongly believe in? And I took some time, just for some stats and some numbers here. I took some time to not post. I felt as though I'd said my piece, and now I feel like it's wrong to try and dilute the message that is at hand right now through social media. So yes, we had a lot of things planned. Yes, we had events and marketing deals and campaigns that we were planning on releasing, but they can wait. When is the next opportunity going to arise when the entire world has been forced to stop, been slapped in the face with what is going on right now, and actually have to take action? And if you don't take action and you have a reach that is large, then you're not doing your duty as a leader. So we made a challenge that aligned to what we're doing. We have a goal to raise money, but most of all, we're offering resources that we've read ourselves. We've been reading, we've been listening, we've been open to discussion. And at first it was scary because I was posting my personal opinion, which usually I try and stay neutral. And rather than force opinion, I usually try and just give resources to allow people to create their own. But the conversation that this opened on my comments, on my page, were shocking. And at first I'm like, what have I done? And then I had a conversation with Paolo, and he's like, absolutely not. This is exactly what we need. We've been able to avoid these uncomfortable conversations for so long, which is why we're still in the place that we're in. Let's use this space, use your platform to allow uncomfortable conversations to have, to see differing opinions. And I mean, it was a tough decision to make. It hasn't been easy. We are receiving backlash, but I know that I can go to sleep at night knowing that I'm doing the right thing for what I believe in, what Paolo believes in, and just across human race is the right or wrong thing to do. So that's kind of where we're at. We are doing our best to give everything that we can to try and help and support this movement. We're so proud of you, and we're so proud of this entire team by taking action, because we can all speak, but action takes a lot more. And I hope together we can make a change that can actually change the future of our history.
Amen to that. Hannah, first, thank you for all the work that you're doing, because as you explained it, it's very clear that you and Paolo have undertaken a personal journey You've taken a personal journey to understand. You've taken a personal journey to educate. You've taken a personal journey to influence. And you're doing so despite all the backlash that you may receive or halting your business and that growth. You're taking a selfless stance, which is very much needed. So the fact that you are standing boldly with a system that's going against people that need to also be supported, to stand with the Black community means a lot, because you don't have to, but you know that you're supposed to, and you know that it's right. And one thing that you said to me that was amazing and that really hit home with me is, it's not a political issue. This is a right or wrong issue. And you can go to sleep at night because you know you're doing the right thing. You're standing up for people that need that support and that have been marginalized and discriminated against for the entire history of this country. So kudos to you and Paulo for what you guys do and what you guys are continuing to do.
And just to
Paulo,
chime into that point real quick before I hand it over, I think that's something else that is extremely important that we hear with what you just said. It's a matter of right and wrong, right? But in a world or a system where we're raised not knowing and we're avoiding or throughout our history books and all of our education throughout school, if we're not taught what has happened over time, how can we empathize? And that's how I sympathize for people that are super loud about how all lives matter. Of course all lives matter, but that's not the conversation at hand here. You know, if we were all informed, even with children, I keep watching documentaries on kids in these minority areas that have to go to school where they're not receiving the best education. They've got horrible environments to go to school in, and yet they've got chains around their doors when they go to school. They have to walk through metal detectors, all based on where they live and the location that they are, based on, back to Johnny's point, probably the redlining. So everything is connected. No, it isn't political, but it's become political now because the beauty of human beings and these young children that are so powerful, that have such a voice, they understand right and wrong. And if our children or our future children are going to be the future leaders to be able to take change or make change, they need to be informed so that they can empathize with what's going on, to understand over history, this was right, this is wrong, I need to take action to do something about it. But it's so easy to be raised in a system and just avoid it, and not ever have to deal with it.
That is very true.
Starting from the bottom up, man, kids know right from wrong. And they're intelligent too, and they can make a huge difference. Sorry, babe.
You are absolutely right. And it all comes back to education, to your point. Whether it be the education system or us stepping out of our comfort zones, educating ourselves, and despite the society and the societal norms benefiting us, still doing what's right, still doing what's appropriate. All right, Paulo, before I get to you, I know we have a question, so I want to get that question in first.
Let's do it.
All right, so the first question I received is, this question, well, okay, so you guys can hear the question, perfect. So, Paulo, let me ask you, well, how do you feel is the best way to open up dialogue with a Black person on systemic racism?
First of all, I think that to start a conversation, like Hannah was saying, like Ashley Paulson and Johnny were saying, we need to educate ourselves. Because the biggest problem today in our country is because most people, they do not understand how Black people live. How Black people live the second that they leave their homes. They have to act a certain way because they know that they're under pressure the second that they shut the door. So we need to educate ourselves. Like Anna was saying, we spent countless hours reading, watching documentaries, watching YouTube, watching, you name it, to understand really what is that Black people in America go through every single day. So once, and I think that the first and foremost, it's about education, Giddy. I think that we need to understand to basically increase your level of empathy, to understand, try and put ourselves on other people's shoes and understand what it is to live with a different color skin. What do you think?
You know what? I agree with you 100%. And I want people to I want you to think of it a different way. I want you to think of, because the question was, how do you ask a Black person about systemic racism? And the tough part with that is, if you're asking me, especially at this time, it's a fresh wound. It's something that I'm dealing with right now. And even though I'm walking on this treadmill, I'm smiling, I'm trying to educate and be engaged with you, I'm not gonna lie. As a person, as a human being, I am hurting inside. So for me to continue to have these conversations at this pace while the wound is still so fresh is really, really challenging. So going up to any person and just say, sitting down, and even though your intentions are great, and start to dig into a wound that's fresh with somebody who's going through a traumatic experience, as most black people are, it's really, really challenging for us to be able to gracefully respond the way we want to and the way we know we could and should. So that's why it's very important to do what you, Paolo and Hannah, have done and take it upon yourselves to educate yourselves and learn, because there's so many resources out there. I'm not saying I don't want to help, but sometimes the conversation is so emotional, it's so heavy, and it's so fresh that it's a challenge. So if you know that there's resources out there, there's books, you can run a Google search, you can turn on Netflix or whatever you need to do to get that education, take that time so at least when you're ready for that conversation, or anybody who's open to conversation with you, you have a great basis and a foundation of education, of knowledge, and you're asking questions from a more elevated place. So hopefully that helps out a little bit. All right, Hannah, Paolo, thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing. Stay cool down there in Florida. All right, my friends?
Have a great one, Giddy. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, buddy.
Much love. All right, we're moving on to Dominique. Dominique Blake in Arkansas. Dominique, you there? How are you?
I'm here. Hey, Gideon. I am amazing. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for being this wonderful beacon of light. Hello to everybody that's on the live. I'm super excited to be here with you guys today. What a wonderful way to spend Juneteenth. So I'm blessed, I'm grateful, and I'm excited. Despite all the things that are, happening in the world, I'm one of those people that choose to look for the good in every single situation.
I love it.
And what a time to be alive. This is a dope revolution to be a part of. So
That is so true.
hey, everybody.
Yes, yes. And by the way, I know some people may not know exactly what Juneteenth is. So let me talk to that, and feel free, Dominique, to add in anything that you'd like to. But Juneteenth essentially is June 19th, 1865.
Yep.
And that exactly is the day where the last group of slaves in Texas were informed that the Emancipation Proclamation has been passed, meaning that there was no such thing as slavery in the United States. So that took 2.5 years after Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, because there were so many southern states that were holding on to that information, not sharing it because they wanted to get through the next harvest or maintain slavery for as long as they could. So imagine that, having the Emancipation Proclamation ending slavery, but 2.5 years passed before everyone was notified, and then black people were truly made free. So that's why it's such an important day. And to be honest with you, let's really think about it. That should be the true American Independence Day, because we're all Americans, right? If we agree to that, then all Americans aren't free until all Americans are free. So that's why we're here on Juneteenth. Is there anything you want to add to that, Dominique?
No, you nailed it. I think that you said that very correctly. You have your facts right on. With that exact information, I think everybody, from people from all walks of life, just hearing that, you have to ask yourself, what does that even mean? As far as humanity goes and how we stand up for each other in this country, like dating back to that far back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How much have we grown? How much have we changed? And right now we're in this unique situation where the entire world has come together to acknowledge that, and now we have a game plan to move forward. So the conversations have to happen, the uncomfortable ones, the comfortable ones. People have to get out of their feelings and just understand that, this is one group of people that have been affected for a very, very long time, and other groups have been able to move on with their lives, get reparations, and kind of build their legacy and wealth. And that, black people have just been in this space, really just working towards trying to change year after year for 400 years.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to be exposed, learn more, turn on, I'm learning with my other white friends as well, because we can't point the finger and say, hey, you need to get educated, and we don't know as much as we could possibly know as black people. So, even living in this wonderful black skin every day, I still make it my job and my duty to do the easy things, do the things that are free, have conversations with other people about their history, turn on Netflix, go on Google. Google is absolutely free. I tell it to people all the time. So Yeah.
No, I love it. And Dominique, you hit a couple of things on the head. It's like, even as a black person, there's a lot of education I need to do for myself. There's a lot of things that I need to learn.
Yes.
You said there's a lot of things that you need to learn. I'm first generation American. I was born to Nigerian parents. You were born in Jamaica, so we have different backgrounds, but we're still black people. But
correction, I was born in New York.
oh, you were born in, oh, excuse me, but you're Jamaican
raised,
back. Okay, raised in Jamaica.
But oh my God, that is everybody. You know what? You're not the only person that thinks that, because if you were a Jamaican right now, my accent would totally change. But I was born in New York and moved to Kingston, Jamaica right before I turned 1. So I have a very different cultural experience than the average black American. But I'm not gonna cut you off. Go ahead. And I'll answer
and we're gonna talk about that because that's very interesting. We have a question. I want to get to that question in a little bit, but we do need to talk about that because a lot of people say, well, oh, you're from Africa. Yes, but when I come into this country, when I stand on the streets of my city, I am a black man. I am a black person. My origins don't matter. The fact that I know where I came from or didn't know where I came from do not matter. The fact that I have money or I don't have money does not matter. The fact that I'm left-handed or I'm right-handed does not matter. We're going to talk about that in a little bit because I know you have a very eclectic background in terms of places you lived. But first, let's get to this question.
Yes.
All right, that's a great question. What can a white woman do to support black women? I want to ask you, Dominique.
Okay. Well, there are a couple things. So this is actually a very common question in our community. We've put together meetings and we've called it our own little red table talk, inviting white women and black women together to ask those same questions, because white women tend to be very uncomfortable with certain things when it comes to black women, and then we just get labeled angry black woman. So it's not that we're angry, it's that it goes back to that same frustration that you mentioned before, Gideon. But just to answer that question, white women should understand that their whole existence on this planet, they have never been targeted in the same way a black woman has. I think that the saying is the human being that's disrespected and least valued the most is the black woman, right? So we're expected to show up. We're expected to give our bodies, dating back years and years ago, slave owners would have the black woman breastfeed the white baby before her own baby. So there are all these generational and cultural traumas that are, just continuing generation after generation. And so white women, you have to understand that your level of empathy has to be through the roof. The skin you have has to be a little bit tougher, because we don't have the room or the leeway. We're not given that moment to just kind of relax and take it easy when it comes to going out into society and showing up. You know what I mean? We have to show up in the workplace, whether you're an athlete, you have to show up, just personally in my space. If it's between me and somebody else to be on the cover of, say, a Elle magazine or a ESPN, blonde hair, blue-eyed, less talented, or myself, it's going to be a little bit more of a debate. My agent has to work a little bit harder, where it should never have to be like that. And we've seen that in the cases with Serena and her other Sharapova. So it's in all of these spaces, and it's not always very evident. Sometimes it's very covert. So the words that we choose to use, our tonality, our body language, how we treat each other. So for white women, I think it would do a lot of help if there's more self-education and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to learn. Because just me being the type of person I am, if something scares the hell out of me, that's the thing that I'm going to do. I might just be a little bit crazy, but you know what I mean? Putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, it makes us grow. Whether we're white or black, you don't know what you don't know, but when you're put in a position to grow, it's never supposed to be comfortable.
That's so true.
So,
that's so true.
I always, let them. Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
So.
Now, thank you for answering that question. That was a great answer. And I want to really highlight what you said. One of the first things you said, and that there is probably not a more marginalized group of people than the black woman. I mean, let's think about it. Black people were slaves to white people. That was a tragedy in itself. So making black people have an experience that was inferior. But think about women. Women couldn't vote until after black people could vote. Can you imagine that? So, so even having that disparity in terms of how society views women, period, but let alone the black woman, just puts so much stress, strain on the hearts and on the backs of our queens. And it's unfair, it's unjust, and it also is part of the black experience. And it affects the family, it affects the psyche, and there's a lot that goes into it. Now, Dominique, I want to ask you this because you have a very, very unique experience. You are a Olympic medalist. You are a world champion. You were born in New York, I stand corrected, right? And you lived in Jamaica. You went to college in Penn State in Pennsylvania, and you live in Arkansas right now. So you've been all over the place. Have you experienced racism? And if so, to what degree would you call it?
All right. I'm going to tell you this right now. Because I was raised in Jamaica, Jamaica is more classist than racist. So that means, you know, you can be as dark as this cell phone, but if you have social status and money, you get to kind of skip that place. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
You're not ridiculed.
Yeah.
So you can live among your white counterparts and you know, white people, and the respect is there. And so there's racism here and there, but it's not crazy at all. It's nothing like it would be in America. So spending 12 to almost 13 years of my life there and then moving to New York City was total culture shock. So I'd been in private school my whole life until I moved to New York for high school. And so I'd always been athletic. You know what I mean? Track and field was always my thing. My parents put me in every sport. And then I moved to New York and I realized that inner city, I was now like among Black and Hispanics. If there was a white person in school, they would be the minority. And so, you know, I kind of stuck out because living in Jamaica, we were all one. You know, I did not understand what it meant to kind of point a finger at a person because of their color. You know, my first boyfriend, as I could remember, was blonde hair, blue-eyed Jamaican. If you started talking right now, you couldn't believe him because it's because the Germans made a pit stop in Jamaica and they lived there and kind of had relations. So our melting pot is crazy. So from going from a blonde hair, blue-eyed boyfriend to an Asian boyfriend to moving to America and then only having just a black pot of wonderful chocolate men to pick from. And then, okay, great. Now, so you have to understand, so the psyche behind that, me not understanding how serious racism was, and then going to Penn State and then hearing about, you know, people being lynched and understanding more, because now I'm older. Now I got to college when I was 17, 18. I'm now the minority as an athlete. Now we're the most valued people on the campus because we're bringing in the money. The football players are bringing in the money and the notoriety to the university.
Yes.
People, you know, look at you like you're a god. You're scoring points. You're winning SEC and Big Ten titles. All of this stuff. All right, okay, but still there is this thing where we understand racism among our team. Cross-country girls and sprinters sometimes would get different kinds of treatment. This is no shade to Penn State. I love my alma mater. But as far as how the distance girls would be coddled if they got injured, it's almost as if black athletes they could run through a wall, have a concussion, be passed out, and they're expected to get back up, put their uniform on, and get back on the tracks. So, it's like, whoa.
So that sounds very interesting. It sounds like even though you are considered valuable, you still have a limit on that value.
Yes.
So it's almost a restrict. There's a ceiling almost, and that has to be very disheartening, especially if you're a young adult, you're a young athlete. I mean, and you've gone through several levels of competition, so I totally get how that can stay in the back of your mind and really kind of hinder your progress and at least your freedom to kind of go out and be your best. Man, that's tough. But I always like to think that there's hope for the future. And I hope you feel that same way,
It
Dominique.
is.
And are you hopeful? And if so,
I
in
do.
what way?
Oh, let me tell you something. So Gideon, if anybody knows me, they know that I look for the great, the good in every single situation, because I'm a glass half full type of person.
I love
You
it.
know what I mean? So I look for opportunity in every single situation, and so I'm always hopeful. When I wake up in the morning, one of my first affirmations are, how does it get any better? And I'm asking that question to the universe because I expect my day to be fantastic.
Yes.
I don't get to have a ridiculously terrible day. The first 30 minutes of our day sets the tone for the rest of the day. If you
everything.
can't control your first 30 minutes, it's gonna be tough for you. So those are two things I never compromise, and
Awesome.
exercise helps me with that.
I love
right?
it. I love
so
it.
I have to be able to go to sleep great, and I have to be able to wake up great. So I'm always hopeful. And so for me, I'm looking forward to 2021. It was supposed to be summer, the Tokyo Games for 2020. And so 2021 is going to be amazing because
Absolutely.
This time we're going for a gold medal. I'm being super specific with
There we
my
go.
my goals this time.
I love it.
My coach is invested, and so I'm super excited and just growing Diamond Training, which is my business here. We're the #1 personal training company in Northwest Arkansas. We're virtual, local, and mobile, and I'm growing my team here.
Dominique.
So we're hiring tons of trainers, tons of people need jobs. So I'm
Yeah,
excited.
you are going to be amazing. Your initiatives are going to be amazing, and continue to be that outlet. Continue to be that representation
Thank
for,
you.
for everyone to look to,
question.
aspire to, and continue to grow from. Yes, we look like we have another
Yes.
question. Fire away.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Great question. The question is how.
Is that for me or Gideon?
We can both answer it. The question is, how does the NAACP help, and how does it continue to help? Well, the NAACP stands for the National Advancement of Colored People. And the great thing about this organization, especially with the Legal Defense Fund, is that they invest in education, they invest in advocacy, and they invest in awareness for the plight of colored people, specifically black people. Now, I also want to talk about the difference between black people and colored people, and I want to keep this flowing, but when you hear the term black person, some people are not sure if they should say that. Like, that's a black man, that's a black woman. Is that offensive? Is that not offensive? Or maybe they prefer African American or person of color, but maybe I shouldn't say the term color because that wasn't a racist term. So I can understand that there's a lot of confusion when it comes to that. But and you can chime in at any time, Dominique, but when you're referring to a black person, you're referring to a black person, meaning somebody who may not necessarily know their ancestry in terms of where it traces back to in Africa is what you may call an African American, somebody who has lineage that comes and traces back to the South or being in America at a time during slavery. Is generally what you would refer to as a black person. But at the same time, too, feel free to use that term for anyone who falls into that category, despite where you know where they're from. Now, if you know that the person is actually from Nigeria, like myself, well, you can call me a Nigerian American because my roots trace to Nigeria and I'm American. Now, if you're referring to a person of color, that can mean a number of things. That can mean our Latino brothers and sisters. That can mean our Asian brothers and sisters, in addition to black brothers and sisters. So you're really widening the gap there. But at the end of the day, let's be very clear. We're the human race, right? All of those colors and all of those differentiations are just that, just to separate us. But we don't need that. We don't need to acknowledge that. We can acknowledge and respect the fact that we're human, the fact that we all hold inherent value, and that value is the same. And once we come to understanding that and start to wipe away the stereotypes that have been made in our mind through society, through movies, through media, that's when we'll truly start to feel and see that we're all on the same playing field.
Oh my God, you answered that so beautifully.
Thank you. Dominique, I appreciate your
so much.
insight. Continue to do what you do and knock it out. We'll be watching you for the 2021 Olympics, young lady. Make us proud.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the support and the love. Thank you guys for being here. We'll see each other soon.
Yes, yes, Dominique, you are awesome. We are now going to the East Coast, Philadelphia to be exact. We have my homegirl, Fabiana Ferrarini. Fabi, you there?
Hey, bro, what's up? What's up?
How you doing, my friend? I'm so glad that you're here marching with us and continuing to support and provide this awareness. Everything well with you and the family?
Yes, everything is well. Giddy, I want to thank you for, allowing me to be part of this amazing, amazing project. And it's truly an honor. I truly appreciate you.
No, the pleasure is mine. I want to thank iFit again for putting this together. iFit understands that we are at a very pivotal point in our history as a country, and they want to be part of that move to elevate us all as a collective. iFit has grown an amazing fitness community, but that's just a microcosm of the grand community, which is the human race. So thank you to iFit, and again, thank you to you for being here. So Fabia, I got to ask you, you are not a black person, you are not a white person. What's your background, young lady?
So my parents are both from Honduras, but believe it or not, I have taken the time to truly research and educate myself on, my ancestry and, where my family truly came from. And I discovered that I am a quarter Nigerian.
Oh.
And which is like yeah, isn't that insane? It's like, and it's super exciting. So if it's one thing that I've learned from, our current situation is that we really need to sit down and educate ourselves. And, this is not just affecting the Black community, but as well as the, Black and brown. And as a Latina, we have, a lot of Black and brown brothers and sisters.
Yes,
and
yes.
I think it's the time that, we truly need to embrace everyone and embrace our culture and our heritage and embrace us being as Afro-Latinas as well. So, yeah.
I love it. I mean, and that's the thing too, like our melanin, our complexion are things to be proud of. And so often throughout the history of America, and it's a sad history, but it's one that we're all working towards to improve, is that the color of our skin and our melanin and our complexion has always been looked at as a negative. I mean, and let's identify skin for what it is. No matter what color skin you have, it's just that. Like, it's just skin. When you cut it, it bleeds, it heals. It's just the covering for your muscles, the tissue, and your bones. Like, it's just skin. So we tan, right? And sometimes we lighten up in the winter. No matter who you are, it's just skin. So the fact that we discriminate on that is pretty silly when you break it down like that. But I'm glad that as a country and as individuals, we are collectively doing something to change it. So, Fabia, I have to ask you, as a Latina from Honduras with 0.25% Nigerian in you, have you experienced racism, or does that not really happen for people of the Latino heritage?
No, and you know what? It's sad, but it has happened. And, at the moment when it's happening, you're so in shock. You know what I mean? And it catches you off guard that it's hard to speak up at the moment. And after the situations, I've been angry just because I felt though I could have done more to speak up for myself. But growing up, we were never taught to differentiate people based or treat people different based on the color of their skin. We were taught to love everyone. And we were taught that everyone is equal. So, I've experienced it. I've experienced it with both of my parents, and it's extremely hard.
I totally hear you. And I think the challenge that lies for most people is that not too many people are going out and saying, I don't like you because of your skin color. At times, it's not that overt. Trust me, there are times where it is. But there's time where it's not that overt. But in the things you say, in the mannerisms, in the side eye that you may look at, and even though you may not realize it, there's a term for that, and it's called microaggressions. When somebody says something in the workplace that's insensitive, and whether they realize it or not, it's a microaggression, because it continues to chip away at the soul of the person who's being affected. And even though you may not feel like it's much, it really takes away from the just life experience that we are all entitled to have, which is the pursuit of liberty, happiness, and all things good. And with America, and that being our mantra, we really have to uphold that standard so everyone can truly, truly be free. Now, Fabi, we've had some personal conversations. You're a good friend of mine. You were telling me about something that happened to your son and a question that he asked you that just really shook me to my core. Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, so as you guys know, my husband is half black and half white, and it's crazy because we have two biological kids together, and one is very, very light skinned and the other one is very dark skinned, which tends to happen a lot with mixed children. But this past weekend we were down the shore in New Jersey, and we walked, my son is 8 years old, and we walked past a cop car. And, you know, he got very scared, and he held my hand really tight. And I was like, hey, what's going on? You know, like, are you all right? And he's like, Mom, like, what about if they shoot me, you know, because of the color of my skin?
Wow.
And, you know, as a mother, it was very emotional, you know, because like I said, the same way I grew up, there was no, you know, I wasn't raised to look at anyone for their color of skin or treat them any different. So to have this conversation in 2020 with my 8-year-old was very, very emotional.
Oh my goodness.
You know, was very emotional. And yeah, and you know, I feel like as a mother, you know, our job is to build up our children, you know, and it's to teach them to be confident, you know, and you know, and I looked at him in his eyes, and I gave him a very tight hand, and I was just like, you know, you have beautiful skin, you know, and you're here for a purpose, you know, you're a special gift from God, and you know, your skin is beautiful, and you're worthy, you know, you're worthy. And you know, I explained to him the reality of the truth is that not every cop is bad, but there is a few bad apples, you know. But my job as his mom is to protect him and to continue to educate him.
So true, so true. And I'm glad you took that time to really allow him to understand that he is valuable, that he is worthy. And it's interesting because he is not a black boy, you know, in terms of like the way he may look or be normally categorized. He's not a black boy. But at the same time, at that age, at that young, tender age, he understands that in our country, there is a prejudice against people who look like him or people that are darker than him. So if he's able to understand that at that age from what people may say or what he's seen on the news or what's conveyed in movies, then it really lets you know what the underlying undertones are of America. And I agree with you. I don't think all cops are bad. I have friends who are police officers, and as protests were going on in Chicago, I would text them to make sure that they were safe and they were okay. I know their families, they're friends of mine, I've known them for a very long time, right? But it's not about the person necessarily. I think there's a lot of underlying issues with the structure and with the system that need to be adjusted. So it's about really reforming and understanding where we can change things about our society in general, so that we can all live free, so we can all enjoy that liberty. I have to ask you, Bobby, before we break, are you hopeful?
You know, Giddy, I am extremely hopeful. I'm loving what's happening in 2020. I feel like, you know, we've been awakened. I feel like people are confident and determined to speak up, to be bold, you know, to be fearless, and to understand that like enough is enough. I think it's a beautiful time that people are becoming aware, you know, and truly going out of their way to acknowledge the current situation. And I feel like, you know, our job as influencers is to continue educating and using our platform to be the voice. So I'm extremely hopeful, and I know this is only going to get better. You know, we're not stopping. There's so much work we still need to continue doing, and so I'm just truly looking forward to building a better future for our Black brothers and sisters.
I love it. I love it. Fabi, I love you so much. Thank you for joining. Thank you for walking and marching, helping build awareness. Continue to do what you do so amazingly well with your Queen Warriors and your online tribe, and continue to spread the word. Let's get it out there, and let's get people to really feel it in their hearts so they can start taking action. Much love to you. Say hello to the family, please.
Thank you so much, Giddy, and I want to thank the iFit family as well for putting this together. For you, I truly adore you, and this is amazing. Like I said, let's continue working together. Let's do what we can, and let's continue to move forward.
Absolutely, and continue marching, y'all. Remember, all of you who are watching, all of you who are participating, iFit is going out of their way and doing what we know that they would, and supporting the Black community, supporting this cause by going ahead and donating based off of your participation alone. So keep marching and continue to raise those funds just by being here. All right, we have to go to Tennessee, Nashville to be exact. We have the power couple, Elise Miller, and we got Chris Miller as well. Elise, how you doing?
Hey Gideon, how are you? I'm doing great. It's so nice to be here. It's such an honor to join iFit and to join you. I miss seeing you in person, but thanks for having us.
I am so happy you're here. Thank you for rocking. Chris, how you feeling, my man?
Oh, I'm good, man. We just been here riding and listening to some great dialogue. Love what I'm hearing here. And, I'm just honored to be a part of this. And it's just such a privilege to join you here. I've been watching some of your stories on Instagram and just want to thank the iFit team at Icon Fitness there just for allowing this platform to do this. It's so important right now, Gideon, and we're just happy to be here.
I love it. I love it. Again, I'm very glad that you're both here. Chris, I'm actually going to start with you. So, Chris, we're now kicking off hour 2. We're marching strong. Everybody is moving. And you come from a very interesting perspective. And what I mean by that is you have experience in television. You're a news anchor. You are providing the stories. You know what it's like in terms of what's provided and given to the public. Have you noticed anything along the racial lines of the presentation of stories or just your experience in the industry?
Yeah, man. I mean, always. This is a critical issue. It's a critical time right now. We have to be very careful for the way that we pass our messages along. And, we live in the South here, so some people don't share the same opinions as other people, and they will let you know that when you're on the air or when you post on social media. So it's important for me, it's important for someone in the media to remain objective and unbiased. This is a movement that's something different. This is about freedom and equality, and that is what the media exists for. We are designed, the whole point of this thing that exists is for us to give a voice for the people and to provide that. And so, I've been right on the front lines of this. I've been working downtown at some of the protests that happened weeks ago in Nashville. We had one that turned violent. The rest of them have been mostly peaceful. And there's been some awesome, positive dialogue here in Nashville. It's just been a real privilege to kind of pass it on to everybody. And we have an important position where the way that we communicate things can be perceived in certain ways. So, and I know I said that, but the important thing is to be able to make sure that we're interviewing the right people. For someone like me, a reporter or an anchor, when you're interviewing someone, you have a tendency to want to talk to someone who looks like you, who acts like you, who may have the same beliefs. They're an easy person to talk to. But for someone like me, it's important for me to choose someone else to talk to, someone who looks different, someone who has different color, a different ethnicity, a different background, who can give us a completely different perspective. Or, in most cases we find, they are very much like us. And I think that that's the important takeaway for all of our viewers here, is to realize how much we all have in common. And that is a privilege that I have, and I look forward to doing it every morning here in Nashville.
That is awesome. You know what? Thanks for sharing that, Chris. It's a very interesting perspective. I'm curious, throughout the course of your career, and you'll have to refresh me on how long you've been in the industry, have you seen your views change or how you understand what media presents change? Has any of that adjusted over the course of your career?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has. Moving here to the South has been a big part of that. We're from the Western United States. I grew up in Colorado. Lived in California, Washington for a while. Elise is from Arizona, from California, and it's been mostly West. When we moved out here, I realized, for one, driving downtown, there is a huge demographic difference in Nashville and Denver, Colorado, or Huntington Beach, California. There's a big difference. Yeah. You notice that right away. So the first priority I did is I wanted to make friends with people who didn't look like me, and so we could open this dialogue and this conversation. So I have a friend who is a prominent DJ in Nashville, and when I have a story that I'm working on or I'm concerned about the way something is worded, I'll text him. I'll be on the air anchoring the morning news, and I'll text my friend Seawiz and be like, hey man, what does this sound like? Does this sound racist to you? Is there a better way that I could word this? Immediately gets back to me. And so, that's an important thing. That's a shift that I've noticed just in the way that I have to communicate. And hopefully I'm doing a good job. Always, there is something that someone like me can learn. People look at, Lisa and I, we live in the suburbs. We've got a boy and a girl. We're missing the white picket fence and the dog. But, they look at us and they're like, oh, okay, so this is the white cookie cutter couple. And so we have a real burden to make sure that we are reaching out to other communities and we are introducing these different ways of life, different colors, different looks to our kids and to our family, and we're bringing that in, introducing that to our family. And so that's something we really work on as a family unit.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Chris. It's so important to open up our circles and have our spheres of influence starting to broaden. So to your point, we will continue to think the way we think. We will continue to act the way we act if we're surrounded by other people who think and act the same way. It's only when we break out and introduce ourselves to something new and hear something different and feel something unique that we can actually start to have internal dialogue, which hopefully transitions to external dialogue and then positive change. Now, don't get me wrong. There's going to be some things you expose yourself to where you're not interested, and that's fine, but at least give yourself the chance with an open heart to hear the story of another, to understand the plight of another, and hopefully start to expand and broaden. Now, Elise, I have to ask you, as a beautiful mother of 2 active, healthy children, how are those dialogues and conversations, especially while Chris is on the front lines, protests are going around, is daddy going to be safe? I mean, I don't know what conversations are happening in your household, but as a mom, how tough or easy is it to have these interactions with your children?
That's a great question. And really, I mean, it's tough because I'm so worried I'm going to say the wrong thing. And we've always tried to really expose our kids. I mean, we travel, so we show them different cultures, and we have friends, black friends, white friends, Hispanic friends. You know, we have all different friends. So we've always tried to expose them. But I didn't realize how much we haven't had like the exact race privilege type of conversation with our children just until, just several weeks ago when Chris came home. He was working all morning. He was working all into the night on protests and all the stories. And so our son just turned 7 just a few weeks ago, and our daughter is 4. And so I was like, oh my gosh, well, my initial instinct was like, they're just too young. I don't really need to explain it to them. I'll just say daddy's working. But I'm like, no, that's not the right thing at all. They need to know what's going on. And so I sat down and talked with our son, who at the time he was 6, and I just kind of explained it to him, and I was saying, about George Floyd, that he was shot and the skin color, and he was just like, he laughed because he was like, well, that is the most crazy thing. You're joking. That's the most crazy thing I've ever heard of, Mama. No one would ever not like someone because of their skin color or treat them differently. And I was like, wow, like that's coming from a little mind. I'm like, it's that crazy. It is crazy. And he was saying, well, I don't feel that way. I love everyone. And so part of me was like, awesome, okay, we're doing okay there. Like, he knows to love everyone. And I'm like, if we can all just take, like, that little kid even, just saying, love everyone. Like, it could just be, if it could only be that simple. I know it's not, but, so we had that conversation with him, and he still is just like, I don't get it. He still doesn't quite get why somebody would judge somebody or think differently of someone, because he just keeps saying, well, because they're different. And that's something, Gideon, that I wanted to ask you. I mean, my kids say, like, well, are they different than us? And it's like, I don't know exactly how to answer that. So I wanted to ask you, Gideon, what is the answer to that? And also our daughter, who is 4, I don't quite know yet, like, exactly what to say to her.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's okay. Like, you don't have to have all of the answers. You don't have to have all of the solutions. But the thing is, we all have to be willing to learn. The same way that I am learning, the same way that I am growing, is the same way we have to all learn and grow together. So not getting out of our comfort zones.
Are you? Gideon, are you there?
I'm not muted, but you guys can't hear me. I think you guys may have a hard time hearing me right now. I'm going to call back into the bridge.
All right, well, we're working to get Gideon back on there. It sounds like, you know what? I mean, it's an important conversation. We can continue it right here until Gideon hops back on. But is he back on?
All right, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so I'm back on. Technical difficulties. When you're marching for a change, sometimes obstacles will be in your way. Something's gonna try to trip you up and stop you from your progress. But guess what? We keep doing. We keep on marching. So a little bit about what you were saying, Elise. Yes, we're not going to have all the answers. We're not going to have all the answers at all. Sometimes we're going to be stuck. We're going to be lost. We're going to be confused. But the thing is, we can't grow tired. We can't grow weary in wanting and needing to do the right thing. So take that break. Understand that you don't have those answers. Communicate that. Ask and use the resources around you, the people that you love and know, resources online, and find ways to just do things better. kind of have conversations and just get out of the comfort zones just a little bit, because when you do that, that's when you grow. As fitness professionals, we know that. You got to get out of your comfort zone in order to progress to the next level. Chris, Elise, I appreciate your insight and your time. I love you guys. Thank you for doing what you do. Much love to the family.
Thank
you
so
so brother.
much.
Hugs
Thank
to you.
All right, we have in Redondo Beach, California, the one, the only, the lethal shooter. That's Chris Matthews, basketball coach extraordinaire. Chris, you there?
I'm here, brother. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. I'm glad to have you on. Thank you for taking time away from the court and all of your professional athletes to come and march with us. I appreciate that solidarity.
No, absolutely. Anything I can do to help, I'm always going to be here for you guys, especially when it's about uniting all of us and everybody understanding that equality is very important in today's world.
Without a doubt. So I have to ask you, as one of the best, if not the premier basketball shooting instructor, you work with the best athletes in the world. What does that mean in terms of being a black player and a black person? Does that change your experience? Is it all the same? What have you experienced throughout your career?
It definitely changed your experience, but, you know, being a black athlete, like what Dominique was saying, it definitely does help sometimes water down the type of racism that certain people might feel towards you. You know, like she was saying, in college, there were certain situations you might be at a party and somebody would be like, oh, no, he's cool. He's on the basketball team, whatever. And it's like, don't let into other black people, though, because it's something like this. Or when you pull up or something, you always get a certain type of view because you're an athlete. And, you know, it's just basically it's a blessing now to see how those tables are turned at certain universities, not the universities I went to, but Washington State and St. Bonaventure, but certain universities who were in like racist areas with like statues of men who had slave owners, and now those teams are understanding that they have to take those statues down, and African American brothers and sisters have helped build colleges in towns of basically people, basic towns that were built on racism. Yes. And I feel like in today's society is one of the monumental times, and I think this is a great revolution, because if it wasn't for quarantine right now and COVID, who knows if the situation with Brother Floyd it'd have been a blink of an eye. You know, people would have been thinking about the NBA. What is LeBron about to do? What is Steph Curry going to do? What is going on? What is going on here? But what God did was he slowed the world down so we can really see what's really going on in the world. And what it did was it woke up people who were oblivious, because I had so many people that work with me in different companies that sponsor me, and they're just like, wow, I never knew this, Chris. Like, is this how it really is? And absolutely, absolutely, this is exactly how it is. And for those partners of mine and sponsors of mine to reach out to me and say, you know, I feel your pain. I apologize because I was naive, and I apologize because we didn't hear your cry, and I apologize because every time this situation happened, Chris, we will see it, change the channel. We'll see it and cut on sports, so we'll see it and turn our back. But you know, it's a blessing to see that just how many people are fighting for equality and fighting for understanding that the African Americans in America have been not treated the way they need to be treated, and people aren't being naive. And the people who are naive, they want things to stay the same way. And the poison that they're showing is they're the ones that are being humiliated now. Like, they're the ones in public trying to still spread racism, and people are throwing rocks at them now and bashing them and making them feel bad, when the tables were turned, when, you know, our ancestors were in the streets fighting and they were throwing rocks at us, you know. So now it's like the tables are turning, and that's how history works, because now it's time for everybody to understand that we're human beings. And like I think one of my sisters said, like, or Gideon, you said, you know, we bleed just like they bleed. Like, we're humans. Like, we're not monkeys. We're not all this portrayal that they tried to make Africans and blacks to be. We're humans that have hearts, that have feelings, and understand that we want to be loved just like everybody else wants to be loved. And as a black coach, there's different situations that happen to me, but unfortunately, when racist things happen, it's not cool. But since I am an athlete, or since I am a coach, police officers might be like, oh, you play on the team or blah, 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 which they know they're wrong, let him go. But the whole time they know they're wrong. So if I wasn't in those type of titles, who knows what it could have happened to me.
Yeah, you said a number of amazing things right there. The first one is you admitted that you have privilege, right? And your privilege comes by way of your position, the people you know, your name itself, and your just experiences through your career. And I think a lot of people are missing, especially non-black people, are missing that you have privilege. Whether you realize it or not, the fact is you don't get harassed on a daily basis by law enforcement. You don't have systems in place that don't allow you to get a business loan or a home loan. You have access to better education based off of the place where you live. So there's privileges in your skin color that you didn't necessarily ask for. You were born into it, but also be mindful of it. Nobody's blaming you for it, but it's just something that you should be aware of. And then you also said something that was very interesting too, which was the companies that you work with are now reaching out to you because they had their eyes open. And I think that's powerful because companies, especially structures, organizations, they don't move very quickly. So in order for us to see all of these turnarounds and all of these announcements and these marches in solidarity and these standing up with each other means that they truly understand what's going on. They truly understand that what's going on isn't right, and they're looking to make a change for the better, which I am all about. So some people think it's, why are you so late? My thing is, hey, as soon as you understand your mistake, let's move forward. Let's actually correct it. It doesn't really matter what happened in the past.
No, absolutely. The one thing I understand is I have a lot of friends who are saying, oh, they're doing this now because they want us to stay with those brands. I'm more of right now, like, I'm just happy that brands are admitting that they were wrong, and people are calling out these brands, and people are calling out the NFL, people are calling out the NBA, and people are calling out companies that they know deep down inside, like you were saying earlier, somebody was speaking about the housing and how they redline. They do that. With owning teams. They just want us to run and catch and shoot. But why can't we own teams? Why can't we like people are mad right now because of Kyrie, because he's standing up and saying I don't want to play. And if you see fans, majority of them, they're mad at him. Just shut up, play basketball. Why can't he fight for what he believes in? Just because you want him to play basketball because that's the reason why you love him. He wants to stand up and fight for the people that, like you said, that aren't Kyrie, that aren't Lethal Shooter, that aren't LeBron James. Because there's people out there that don't have a voice. And that's why I use my platform. I lost probably, I think Rebecca said, like 28,000 followers in a span of a week and a half. But I could care less because those are 28,000 people that are for racism. And then we come back and we gain another amount of followers more than what I lost. So like and I heard one of my sisters saying earlier where, she was saying how people in her company was saying you have to word stuff a certain way so we won't lose sales. I respect her because she said she kept speaking it real. And if you're a company and you're for what's right, money shouldn't move you, and money in my position where I am in life, because I am a private contractor for NBA teams. And if a team wouldn't want to bring me in because I want equality and I want an even playing field, I wouldn't want to help that team in general anyway. I want to be a part of the team that if I'm coaching, you're not, like you said, you're not looking at the color of the skin. You're looking at my work ethic. You're looking at how good my work is. And there's a lot of people in African American communities, like what you guys were saying earlier, who are great workers, who are great minds, but they can't get over the hump because if they go on a job interview, just because the way their name might be, if it's Shaniqua or something, and there's a girl named Jocelyn or Becky, we both know that the Shaniqua name is going to get pushed to the side because that shouldn't matter. If she has the credentials or something, then she needs to be picked up. And it's like that in every field, NBA, NFL. If you notice, that it's a limit of certain color coaches. There's a certain number of GMs, and I think the time has changed. And I think where the world is right now, it's just a blessing to just be alive during these type of times because we can honestly say in 2020 it turned out to be one of the worst years of ever, but I think now it's turned out to be one of the biggest blessings ever as well.
That is so true, and I'm glad you said all of those points. I feel like it's one of those situations where you have to hit rock bottom in order for that meteoric rise to happen. And I'm super excited for what's going to happen, what's going to change, for your presence being here and all of the iFit community and even people outside of the iFit community tuning in. This is a momentous time. We have a quick question, Chris. I want you to listen in.
Yep.
Great question. The question is it better to stay quiet in fear and just not say anything, just in fear of saying something wrong, or should you be vocal and potentially expose yourself due to a mistake? How do you feel about that, Chris?
Well, everybody isn't a frontline warrior. So me, myself, I put myself in the front line. I don't mind. But the one thing about being in the front line, you have to know your knowledge. So don't post anything that you're not knowledgeable about. Get the education and get the understanding of what you're going to post. So when you put that post out, people can't really come back against you. So a good example is with the situation with Drew Brees and Kaepernick. I'm a man that I understand. That everybody does have a voice. Everybody can speak. But at the time when Drew said that wasn't the right time to say it, because he understood now why Kaepernick was doing what he was doing. So people were saying that, why are you guys attacking Drew Brees? Why are you guys attacking Drew Brees? I didn't personally attack Drew Brees because I did a post on it as well. But the one thing I did know, that the sympathy that he showed during that time, he knew it wasn't right. That's why he came back and said what he said, because the entire world knows that every time Kaepernick was to put his to kneel during the anthem, it has nothing to do with the flag, has nothing to do with the army, has nothing to do with disrespect. But they do that because they want to water down and confuse society and make them worry about, oh, he's disrespecting the flag, but not saying, okay, this is what's going on in Chicago, this is what's going on in Los Angeles, this is what's going on in DC. Then they'll say, oh, well, he's fighting for people that are killing each other. And what people have to understand is, if you put five people in a small area and there's no resources, and all those people have to get out of that area, how do they get out? You have to fight to get out. And but now what everybody understanding is, if you put the right education in the system, you put the right teachers in there, you put the right jobs in the area, you put different things, put the right recreational, so you put the right police officer in the city. Don't put police officers in neighborhoods that aren't raised in those neighborhoods. Put police officers that are born in those type of areas, so they can understand what it is to walk to a black man that's 6'4" and strong and not be in fear. And it's like, if you're going to speak on stuff, you gotta know your education. And I put out so many posts because I know and feel and I understood. So when people said something back, it was nothing they could say back because I had all of my education in the caption. So you're going to have people that.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just really wanted to highlight that point that you're saying, like, know your knowledge. Yeah. Educate yourself. I mean, to your point, Chris, there's so many resources out there right now. So we can all have this dialogue. I think that so many people paralyze themselves with fear, and as a result, they stay silent. Right. And then when you stay silent, unknowingly, you have sided with the negative. You have sided with those who are racist because you're not doing or saying anything that's going to change the status quo. So your inability to move has forced you to one side, whether or not you realize it. So even if you're saying the wrong thing, try your best to gain that knowledge, like Chris was saying, so that you actually have a basis to ask questions. You have a basis to speak from. Resources are abundant, especially at this time. There's really no more of an excuse for not knowing what's going on and not being able to educate yourself. Now, if you lived in a rural town where no information went in, no information went out, and you're only surrounded by 3 people who share the same beliefs, well, then I can argue that maybe you just never would know. But this is 2020. Information is in abundance. It's always in your face, and you always have the opportunity to learn, watch, listen, love, and grow.
No,
Chris.
Absolutely. You hit it on the nose, and I think you're 100% right. In today's world, if this didn't wake you up, you're a part of the problem.
Indeed. And again, I really want to make it clear. This is not a us versus them situation. This is not a you and them, us versus those guys, a black versus white. This is a human race elevation, right? This is a rising tide raising all ships. This is me putting my hand down and pulling up my brother, pulling up my sister despite their color so that we're all on the same playing field and we can all live happily. So if people are thinking like, oh, this is one movement versus another movement, this is establishment versus anti-establishment, that's not what it's about. Please don't confuse it. I love you. I hope you love me. Let's just all be happy together and have the same opportunities. Man, I really appreciate you, Chris. I want to ask you before we leave, are you hopeful?
I am hopeful because the fight that was going on for years, I think this might be one of the most powerful movements ever around the world for equality and people understanding that we just want equality. We just want normal. We just want to be treated normal. So I think in all human history, the way the world has come together is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. So I'm very hopeful that the change is now, and the change is I think it's going to stick. I don't think it's no turning back.
I love that. I'm hopeful for that as well. My brother Chris, I really appreciate your time. Keep shooting those jump shots, brother.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Much love to you. Yo, very insightful. I always appreciate getting those perspectives from different people. I mean, we're going all over the country. We're talking to so many people with so many different perspectives. Black people, non-black people, but guess what? We're all people, right? Again, I hope you're getting the theme. It's a community and it's an effort together. Next up, we have Craig Robertson, my man, linebacker extraordinaire. You there, Craig? How we feeling, my brother? Everything well with you?
Giddy, how you doing, man?
Everything well with you?
Good, how you doing?
Glad to have you on. Glad to have you on. Yep, can hear you loud and clear. So, man, we got to talk.
There we go.
So you played football for a long time. Give me the history of your football career real quick.
Well, I guess I can start all the way as a kid. I've been playing football as a kid. Got blessed with the offer to go to University of North Texas. Then I went and played for Cleveland Browns for a little bit, and now I've been with the Saints for the past 5 years.
Awesome. That's amazing, man. And I love it. I love what you're doing. I love that you're staying with it, and you are a blessed few that can do what you do at such a high level while also raising a beautiful family and just kind of making yourself and your family proud, man. So salute to you. So as a former football player myself, I have to ask you, what does leadership mean to you, especially in the locker room?
Man, leadership is everything. Just from a guy that's been a captain since high school, really. Been captain high school, college, in Cleveland, so 2 different teams. The qualities of leadership are just different. You know, everybody has certain qualities, but everybody doesn't follow everybody. You know, so being a leader, you have to be able to talk to every single person that you're in a locker room with or in a business room with. So for me, it's, you know, I'm in the business world as well as in the locker room. So I have to be able to connect with every single person in that locker room on a personal level. So that actually means taking time to know each and every person that you have around you. And just on a football, on a sport level, or in business, in a business level, you know, it takes time to be a leader. It's just not something you show up and do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when I was playing ball a long time ago, it was a challenge because even though you're a team, even though you go out there and you're wearing the same uniform, sometimes behind the scenes there's cliques, you know, and there's groups, and maybe there's this group of people over here and this group of people over there. Did you ever experience any racial divides even on a football team?
Well, I guess not really too much with the football, because football is kind of at a point where you got a bunch of guys that come together for one common goal. Yes, you know, it's kind of how some of the guys that came together with sports, you know what I'm saying, how Chris was saying, you know, you get treated a little bit different. So everyone on the football team, obviously you get treated a little bit different, you know. So in football, you really don't see the racial side of that. That's why ever since everything's been going on, I've been getting a lot of, you know, calls and text messages from old coaches that's more so like, hey, I'm sorry, I just didn't know, you know, we were in our own bubble, you know, and it's more so like now just being a different light being shed upon everything. It's been real helpful for everyone just in the football community.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's very interesting you say that, because when I'm thinking of football and just about all team sports, yeah, you do have to come together. And sometimes you have to overlook your differences, understand and respect that you're there for a purpose, and you have to elevate each other for that purpose. Because, you know the situation. There's 11 people on the football field for your team. If one person doesn't do their job, chances are that entire play is blown up. That entire opportunity to advance, that entire opportunity to score, to get to the next level is gone. So we all have to play our part. And that's the same thing with the human race. That's the same thing with what we're experiencing now in our country. Everyone has to play their part. Everyone has to do what's right. Everyone has to support and pull the other person up in order for us to advance and move forward. Now, you have a very interesting situation just being the team that you play for and one of your leaders down there. If you don't mind explaining that situation a little bit and kind of your take on it. Was it a mistake? Was it malicious? How do we understand and correct our mistakes whenever we have that opportunity?
Yeah, so just talking to Drew and knowing him as a person, me calling him a brother, it was more so just a mistake of words and a mistake of timing. For him personally, he always, when he views the flag and everything, he views his grandpa and the people that fought, but he didn't understand the other side. Like, I had a grandfather that fought in the same war, and he didn't come back to that same treatment. And when he said the timing of when he said it, and it made a lot of guys upset, a lot of guys on the team. Like, my phone was going off the hook because I'm a leader on that team. And so he was really apologetic because he really didn't know, and I think that's the biggest issue. What's going on in our country was just like Juneteenth. A lot of people just didn't know about it. Growing up in Texas, we knew about Juneteenth. Growing up in the South, like you know about it. Like, it's part of what your parents teach you, and so we get taught, I would say, differently about certain things, but it's been beneficial for us. But on the other side, the people that don't know, they just honestly don't know. And so it took him hearing from a lot of his teammates and then hearing the backlash and then feeling the backlash. And he really knew that he honestly was just not educated enough. And so it took.
Now, keep going, Chris. Keep going.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me correct?
Oh, no, and it just, I got you. It took many talks, not many talks, but many talks from different players that he really just, can you guys help me and catch me up to speed? You know what I'm saying? And for a guy like that, it takes a strong-willed person to accept change. Yes, and I think that's the biggest thing that our country just needs to see, is whether or not you're strong enough to accept change or you just want to be the weak person and just kind of stay the same. So I think that's just kind of where we're going now in our country. That kind of separates the divide of people that want to change and people that want to stay the same.
Man, Craig, those are very powerful words. I mean, that's essentially a call to all of our leaders. Whether you're a leader in government, whether you're a leader of a company, whether you're the leader of your family, we all have to do better. And if you make mistakes along the way, that's okay. But you have to be open to understanding where you made mistakes. You have to be open to change. And you have to be open to rectifying those mistakes and hoping that you never repeat them again. So it's one of those things where, people are like, I'm so scared I'm going to make a mistake. If you are making a mistake and falling forward, that's progress. You're making a mistake, you're going to learn from that mistake, you grow and you move forward from it. But if you're scared to make a mistake and you stand still, well, that's the opposite of progress. If anything, you're moving us all backwards as a society. So really think about it, especially all of our leaders out there and people who have influence. And that influence doesn't mean that you have 1 million followers on social media. That means you have influence on the people next to you, people in your family, people in your inner circle. Talk, converse, learn, educate, re-educate, and reshare. And that's where we all elevate and get better as a community. Man, very insightful, Craig. Very insightful. So do you think that the other teammates were able to forgive? Or is this kind of a wound that's a little bit too deep to really allow back into the fold?
No, definitely. Just the guys knowing the type of person that he is. It's different for the community that doesn't know Drew, that only know him as Drew Brees, the quarterback. So we know him as Drew Brees, the person. And so, but what guys want to see is guys want to see action besides what your words are saying. You know what I'm saying? Like there has to be something to back up what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, we've had a couple of Zoom calls in our team meeting where we've had Spike Lee, we've had Shaquille O'Neal, and those guys have spoken to us and just given us stuff like docuseries to watch, movies to watch, and us African American, colored players, we've known that, we've known that, but it's more so for the guys that just want education, And I mean, he was a guy that was on, asking Spike, like, yo, Spike, like, help me with this, like, I want to know about this, I want to know about systematic racism more, I want to know about this, and that was a step, but we know like there's many steps. Just to show, that you're committed to everything. And so guys just, it's our job as family, to hold your brother accountable. And it's not only him, he's not a person that's going to be singled out, but it's our job as African American to hold anybody that wants to be held accountable, to hold them accountable.
Man, I love those words. If you love your brother, if you love that family member, you have to hold them accountable. Right? If the arm isn't cooperating, you don't chop off the arm because the entire body suffers. Yeah. If the arm is not cooperating, you put it in a cast. You put some type of aloe vera oil on it. You massage it. You make sure that it comes along with you, right? You don't just chop it off and let it go. We're all part of the human race. We're all part of the human body. We need to make sure we take care of each other. So if one is behind, if one is ill, if one is falling sick, we have to pick that up so that we all can move forward together. Because we can't leave it behind. You leave it behind, you're not whole. And man, I appreciate what you said. You got to hold your brother accountable, hold your sister accountable, hold your family accountable, hold your company accountable, hold your government accountable, hold the world accountable. Man, Craig, I appreciate those words, brother. Thank you for your time.
No problem. And I want to appreciate, iFit just putting this together. It's been awesome. Just people getting together, just talking out and just using their platform just for good use and just heavily getting everything together just to promote change. It's awesome.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a great thing iFit's doing, man, and I appreciate your being a part of this. Talk to you soon, Craig.
No problem. Thank you.
There you have it, my friends. You have just rocked out with the virtual Solidarity March for Black Equality with the iFit team. It was amazing to talk, to listen, to hear, to feel, to understand, and to take action. My name is Gideon Akande, your iFit coach, and I hope you got something from this. And this is just the beginning of a long series of conversations that we'll have. We will continue to push and we'll continue to move forward. We'll continue to do things to elevate the entire human race. And we're going to do that together. Much love, peace, and we'll see you guys next time. Nice work, y'all.